Hello again. It's Ruth Hay back to tell you more about what never too late means to me. You see, I've done a lot of things in my life. In fact, I've had a busy career. I retired not once but twice from teaching, and it wasn't until I saw the end of that second bout of teaching appear that I thought, maybe it's time for me to look at my future and not the future of many children and young people. I had always had a thought in the back of my head that it would be wonderful to write a book. You see, I spent a career as a teacher librarian for most of the time, so I had read everything, not to mention the fact that as a child and a young person, I was reading everything I could get my hands on. Science fiction, fantasy, just about everything. So, that's a bit demoralizing. You feel you can't compete with the wonderful writers you've read. Maeve Binchy, Ursula Le Guin, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. You just don't hope to compete with people like that. But everyone has a story, and everyone has their own story. So the time came when I had to decide what to do next. If you're at a point where what to do next occurs, really think about it and think about what your dream is. I decided that I would take the bull by the horns, as it were, and I would attempt to write a book. I didn't know if I could do it. Now, there's a background to this because I had spent time all my life on journals. I had written for education publications. I had done lessons upon hundreds of lessons. I was always writing, but not for me specifically. So when it came to the big choice, I looked for something simple, a simple idea, and I'll tell you about that idea in that book another time. But the main thing is to begin. There's magic in beginning. So I started out secretly, tell nobody. I didn't want to be embarrassed. I began, and the first chapter was pretty sticky going, I will admit. I wrote and rewrote, and I thought, this is going to be so boring if that's the way this goes. But eventually I got beyond that first chapter, thank goodness, and then things began to move. Now, you may not hear this from every author in the world, but there is a lot of magic involved in writing. I can't explain it, but things happen that you did not expect. And I must tell you that after 30-some books, that magic still happens, and thank goodness for it. Anyway, the story took off. And eventually, I was brave enough to let someone else see part of it, because at the beginning you cannot judge your own work. You just can't. Eventually then people said, it's okay. And I thought, well, I'll finish this. Maybe I'll never write another book as long as I live, but I'll finish it. But I did finish it, and I liked it. In fact, I loved it. I loved the whole process of writing. And I didn't spend forever at it. I wasn't an all-day writer. A couple of hours maybe, quietly in the morning. And I'll tell you about that process again another time. But the main part was I had finished the book. Now the next thing that came to me was, well, one book, maybe everybody has one book in them. You've heard that said. I thought, well, I'll try something different. I'll look at a different scenario and I'll see if I can manage 2 books. Well, now here's the thing. Halfway through the second book, it began to link up with the first book. And I thought, that's peculiar. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. So the second book was done. And then I thought, well, I have characters from the first book that I haven't really dealt with properly. Maybe I should write a third book and bring them into it, and then I'll have 3. Well, you can see where this is going. It ended up as 6 books. And 6 books, ladies and maybe gentlemen, is a series, and a series is something very important. Now, about that time, I had a little bit of money put by, and I decided I would spend it to get these books published. Now, I did. And that allowed me to have in hand a paperback book. And I could then mention this, show this. I went around to a lot of book clubs, showed them my books, talked about my books, and most book clubs have never had a real author visit. So I was able to sell the books more or less one by one by one. Now, how that transposed into a career with ebooks all over the place, which I sell in America as far as the States to New Zealand, a lot in the UK, how that happened is another story. But the main thing I want to tell you today is that I had not given up on a dream. And I pursued the dream, and I can never regret it. If my writing career comes to an end tomorrow, I will not regret 1 minute or 1 day of it. So if you're there, if you're thinking about this, if you're wondering if you're too old to start something new, let me tell you, you are not. All you need to do is dream and begin. And I wish you the best